Good afternoon, I'm Vashan Brown with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. While there's been an increase in the number of murders committed across the island, the government is adamant that it will not be easing up until there's a significant reduction. That's according to Prime Minister Andrew Holness, who was speaking in Westmoreland yesterday. Here's TVJ's Herman Green with the details.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness says intelligence showed that November would have recorded a spike in murders. 127 murders were recorded in the month, including in areas now under a state of emergency. But still, this assurance.
The government, in doing its assessment, starting in November, we do a monthly assessment, recognized from our intelligence and all that we could gather that the month of November could likely be a difficult month.
He said that assessment was behind the deployment of 400 soldiers in certain areas including South St. Andrew, East Kingston and St. James. Mr. Holness says even though people are questioning the effectiveness of the security measures given gruesome murders in areas under a state of emergency, the government will not relent in going after criminals. He however pointed to statistics which show murders declined in areas under a state of emergency. The Prime Minister says even though there is political pressure to end the SOEs, he will not end the fight against crime.
Well, let me make it absolutely clear. This Prime Minister and the government that I lead will not relent against the criminals in this country. So if there is any expectation that if the SOEs are not renewed, that it will be field day for criminals, they have another thing coming. We will put out all our effort, SOEs or no SOEs, to get those criminals.
He said the government will also continue to use provisions under the law to target criminals and will not go after them in any unlawful manner. Mr. Holness also noted that come next year, the crime fight will be strengthened with the procurement of new vehicles.
Next year, you're going to hear a massive announcement about the number of cars, brand new cars, purpose-built police cars equipped with all the tracking technology, all of computer on board inside here. That will come. And it's not just crime, it is also public order.
Herman Green, TVJ News.
In the meantime, there are renewed calls for more focus to be placed on social intervention as the government ramp up its fight against crime. The latest call comes from social anthropologist Dr. Herbert Gale, who has taken issue with the continuous focus on suppression rather than long-term initiatives. TVJ's O'Shane Masters has more.
Despite much criticism about the upsurge in crime, the government has made it clear that it will be sticking with its use of states of emergency as a major crime-fighting strategy. The measure is in place in 5 parishes and 1 police division. Murders have increased by roughly 2% when compared to the corresponding period last year. Between January 1 and November 30, 2019, 1,309 persons have been murdered. Social anthropologist Dr. Herbert Gale commends the effort by the government. He argues, however, that some key components are missing.
There has to be a balance. People have to begin to say, how much are we going to invest in suppression? Now, suppression is needed for the election. Let's just be honest about it, right? You have to cease fire for anything to work. You can't help people while they are shooting at each other. So the tertiary is very necessary, right? Very necessary. But it must be working in tandem, right? While you're ceasing fire, while we have our ceasefire among us, somebody has to be saying we have a plan of redeployment.
National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang recently disclosed that the government will be looking to implement more social programs and develop the ones that already exist. Dr. Gale says before these measures can be effective, all stakeholder groups like the church and the private sector must be involved in the crime fight. He added that more focus should be placed on education.
You have communities in Jamaica where 50% of young men between age 6 and 18 are out of school. The recruitment days are too easy, boss. We have to get back to basics, and again, we have to make sure that out of every dollar, we have at least 30 cents out of every dollar for long-term planning. Even 20 cents out of the dollar for redeployment. And then the other 50 can be for everybody to be happy and to have a sense of bliss for the night.
O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
Sub-Officer for the Linstead Police Station, Inspector Kessels, is making an appeal to community members to pay attention to at-risk youths, especially boys. He was speaking at a recent Linstead Police community meeting where he highlighted the lack of attention towards young boys. We have the details in this report.
I need you to pay more attention to our boys.
That plea from the sub-officer for the Linstead Police to citizens. Inspector Kessels says oftentimes at-risk youths, particularly the males, are the ones who become perpetrators of crime.
Presently at my station, I have over 40 prisoners, which are all males. Spanish Town has over 100 in this division alone. So you are seeing that the main perpetrators of crimes are our young men. We need to reach out to them, especially in the educational field.
Therefore, he's urging members of the community to positively engage youths.
Pay attention to our boys. Too many times the police are patrolling and our boys are idle on the corners. We need to engage them in activities.
And it's now time for a break, but stay with us. More stories right after these messages. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. Continuing the news now. As the festive season approaches, the Linstead Police are in full operation mode. Sub-Officer for the division, Inspector Kessels, has confirmed that some of the measures under the state of emergency declared in the area have been relaxed. Inspector Kessels was speaking at a recent police community meeting.
We are now back to the original closing and opening hours for the establishments. Meaning, so if a club, which is normally 11, or KFC now at 11, they are now back to the original times. But we hope in the meantime, we will not have an increase in crime.
The state of emergency was declared in St. Catherine in September for 14 days. However, it was extended for 3 months until January 18, 2020. In the meantime, Deputy Superintendent Mackenzie says the police will be taking a zero-tolerance approach towards vending in no-vending zones. DSP Mackenzie said there will be increased police in the area.
We'll be doing some operational activities in and around the certain areas to minimize the congestion. Especially in certain areas where we have persons that take their wares and just put them everywhere and everywhere on the street. There are areas that will be designated areas for persons who will be doing shopping, and certainly we will be having a zero tolerance where those incidents are concerned. Just to say that we don't really need the congestion.
A call this afternoon for telecommunications companies to make it easier and clear for customers to know what they're signing up to. The argument arose while lawmakers discussed the use of persons' personal data, including cell phone numbers, by telecoms and marketing companies. Opposition spokesman on technology Julian Robinson said at present the information is essentially hidden from customers. He wants this to change.
12 paragraphs, nobody reads it, but if you are forced to, and I think we should force companies to do so if data is going to be shared. Force them to be more prominent and more explicit about the permission to share your data, and not 2 paragraphs. Hide it in 12 paragraphs in legalese, which nobody reads and just ticks a box, and then you find out you are bombarded.
The lawmaker was present at a joint select committee sitting at Gordon House on Wednesday, where they were discussing the Data Protection Act and the proposed changes to it. Opposition Senator and businessman Mark Golding, however, warned his fellow lawmakers to be wary of alterations they try to make to the system.
You know, it's not just the big man versus the consumer. We're talking about all economic actors, and most of them are not big firms. They're struggling small firms. So I understand that the purpose of this is to protect consumers, but, you know, at the same time, we don't want to disadvantage our economy.
Acting Director General of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, AdPem, Richard Thompson, believes Jamaica will cope better with future disasters. He based his views on some recent changes to the law, which he said have made Jamaica more resilient. Mr. Thompson was speaking at a disaster risk management forum recently.
We would have seen the passage of the Building Act in 2018. We would have seen the passing of the Disaster Risk Management Act in 2015, and we would have seen how we would have been placing disaster risk management in the development agenda of Jamaica, it being a part of the Vision 2030 mandate.
For the AdPem chief, many of the economic struggles facing Jamaica are linked to devastating natural disasters, particularly hurricanes over the last 2 decades.
Various events over the past 20 years would have had impacts in excess of about 120 billion Jamaican dollars. Significant for small island developing states where we have to ensure that there is economic growth and development. So you realize that these events would have been eroding the economic gains that the country would have been making.
Businessman Gary Butch Hendrickson says he's impressed by the drive of small business people whenever the festive season comes around. However, he has called for entrepreneurs to step up their business platforms to become more regulars year-round. He said one avenue available to small businesses now is the internet, and they must take advantage of it.
You can't sell Christmas trees in July, but maybe you'll be selling something else. There's certain things you can't do on a seasonal basis. You have to be a year-round thing. And of course, if you really want to get to a deep extent of this, and I'm working this from a different angle, many people are doing. I'm not unique in this, believe me. You probably hear about me too much, but if they can get into the e-commerce platforms, and there are many of them, and some of them exist in Jamaica right now, some real rock stars are here, they will not have to worry about the market. They will have to worry about filling the orders.
Time now for sports. The connections of Triple Crown winner Supreme Soul have been forced to find a replacement rider for his participation in Sunday's Caribbean Classic over 9 furlongs at Gulfstream Park in Florida. This was revealed to TVJ Sports by trainer Anthony Baba Nunez, who departed the island this morning for the US $300,000 event for 3-year-old thoroughbreds from Latin America and the Caribbean.
Well, unfortunately, Tyler Gaffalione has been booked on him for over 2 weeks now, and yesterday at 5 p.m. we were told by his agent that he had a stakes race to ride back at Aqueduct on Sunday, and he was very sorry. He was apologetic and said, you know, for this late notice, his entry is tomorrow morning. We did try and get other riders such as Ricardo Santana and Manny Franco and those guys who also have rides in the race. So we have basically settled on Hyro Rendon, who is a nice young rider at Gulfstream Park, who is riding well, won a race up until Sunday gone, and he'll be able to catch 112 pounds, as we are allotted a 10-pound allowance for having not won the Caribbean Classic, so we can actually go as light as 108, but we will go with 112 pounds and Rendon.
Meanwhile, Nunez says the preparation of the 3-year-old chestnut colt has gone well since he started exercise workouts on the track at Gulfstream Park 2 weeks ago.
His condition is immaculate. He's really enjoyed his time there. The temperature is really cool, especially in the mornings. It's in the late 50s to early 60s, and he's really enjoying the weather, and he's, you know, cannot be any happier.
Now, the full interview with trainer Nunez can be seen during this evening's edition of Ion Sports starting at 8:35 p.m., so please join us for that later on. And that's the Midday News. I'm Vashon Brown. Join us at 7 for Primetime News Package. On behalf of the News, Sports and Production teams, have a wonderful afternoon.